Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Gez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Gez Perez, a former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take action without the hype in unleashing your greatness in life and in business. We appreciate you plugging in and spending time with us, and we have a very special guest, and I'm super grateful to have her on our show. Welcome to the show, Blessie.
That's a big intro. My bad. But thank you for reading that. That's,
I know.
It's the truth. It is what it is. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Thank you so much for having me here on Motivation Without the Hype. I'm loving it.
So guys, I know Blessie many years back now, and we met through an event in Sydney Kings.
Yes.
And instantaneously we got connected through that. And let me tell you guys, she's just a beautiful soul with so much giftings that she has to bless the world. So, Blessie, to those who don't know you yet, please tell us what you do and bit your story.
Funny that you mentioned how we met. It was at the entertainment center in Sydney.
Yeah.
At that time, if memory serves me correctly, I think it was around about like 2014 or 15, something along those lines. And that was kind of towards the infant stage of having a more professional journey in being an entertainmentpreneur. So as you mentioned, that to me means I've worn a lot of hats. As you can see, I'm wearing one now. It's part of my trademark, but also it's being a musician, an events boss, a tour manager, coach, mentor for creatives. So because I've stayed curious in learning different aspects within entertainment, I've never been able to just hone down on the one thing. I could never just coin myself, I'm a musician. Other things sparked joy within me as well, and I didn't want to limit myself. So, from entrepreneur and that whole surgence of that I feel like in the late 2010s onwards, for a lot of people, as we were moving into like a more knowledge-based economy, that became more prominent, and I just heard that word being thrown around more and more without much understanding of what it was. Until then, I started diving into this niche of entertainment and creativity and all the little subtitles of things you could be a specialist in within that. So that's what gave me what I coined myself within that entertainmentpreneur title, if that makes sense. It's long-winded. Yeah, you're gonna find that I'm very wordy.
So how long have you been in the music industry for, and how did you really got creative in terms of this is what you found your passion in terms of music? Because let me tell you guys, if you haven't followed her on Instagram, you got to follow her because she's just super talented when it comes to singing. She's a jack of all trades. So guys, you've got to follow her. But since we're in this interview mode, how did you get into music?
So entertainment, I suppose, industry-wise, or just being in music or dance as a Filipino, it's kind of embedded in you to perform or to be the little show monkey when you're a kid, right? So, most kids, maybe Filipino kids, begrudgingly would be doing that. And I think I did as well, but for the sake of not making the other kids feel uncomfortable, that I actually wanted to shine, if that made sense. So I followed that curiosity. I've been in, I guess, seriously in live music and entertainment probably since about like 2012 and 2013 onwards. I was kind of working corporate up until that point, and the 9 to 5 and is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but at least love it. At least love what you're doing. And I didn't love what I was doing. I was living for the weekend. I was waiting for Friday afternoon where you could have drinks and go out and live that Sydney lifestyle, and just be minimally happy in an expirational period of time, which was your weekends. Sunday hit, Sunday blues, Monday-itis, the whole cycle would just go and go and go. And it sort of came, the realization sort of came to me at a point, maybe towards the end of 2013. I like to call this like my quarter life crisis onwards. and it was like, and at that time, I think like the word entrepreneur just kept getting thrown around here and there. So it was kind of like, what is that? What does that even mean? Because it was so broad. And I was just like, this, whatever I'm doing right now, as much as I have gratitude towards it, and I enjoy learning and being new in a company and all those sort of things, that the bells and whistles and the hype that comes with that, it wasn't serving my inner self, because I wasn't happy 80% of the time. And you know, what life teaches you is that it's short and you also have choices. Even if you don't see the path or the way through, at least know yourself or trust yourself enough to know that there's something else out there for you, or bigger out there for you. It may not start that way, and as millennials, we always will want to gravitate towards the things that will give us that instant gratification, and we'll fall trap to that often. So I had to just make the choice towards the end of 2013 and cut the ties and start somewhere in the industry. And then I just sort of started gigging and playing, and I was introduced to a lot of different people, and as from that you network more and you just immerse yourself without so much as a parachute.
So can I ask, just with the journey that you've gone through, being in the music industry does take a lot of thicker skin, does take a lot of resiliency, and not only with passion but purpose that keeps you going every single weekend, or even every single time. And whenever I interview a lot of artists such as yourself who are very successful in the industry, you know, they come with a different knack to say, you know what, because I'm led with this passion, I'm led with this, no matter what, I'm going to still keep on going and honing my craft. For you, how did you overcome those challenges along the way? Because it's not easy, isn't it? It's definitely a challenge, but how did you able really to go through it?
Okay, so I think that if it's a curiosity that you have within yourself and you know that you need to answer to it, for me, it started off as that whisper. It was in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, I really enjoy this. I was a part of this event over the weekend, and all I could do is want to be a part of more of the stuff that was giving me those feelings, those vibes. I saw hope in that. And that's what keeps you going a lot of the time. You have to rely on hope and faith and the things that sometimes you cannot see. I mean, if you're a spiritual person and you trust enough into the universe or God or whatever your belief is, that regardless of the direction that you take, you're going to be okay. And the keep going aspect, it's like either I stay in this and I climb the ladder of unfulfillment in my eyes, or I do something and explore something else that may not be a full-on linear road to success, but just a wider landscape of trial and error and opportunity, and that excited me more. So that's kind of what kept me going in a sense, and I had to really dig deep and be strong in the fact that I always had like a fallback. Like, I've got my degree, I can go do my thing, I could always go back if I wanted to, if I needed to. And just having that, I was like, okay, cool. At least have something. If I fail and I don't want to continue on, I'll go back to corporate and find something else that might, you know, make me at least marginally happy. But
I like how you said marginally happy.
it's always just a little bit. But I guess I had to also think about it in the way that, like, first of all, I'm like the oldest sibling. I'm the ate. For those of you who are Filipino, that's the older sister.
So how many siblings do you have?
two younger brothers, and we're
Okay.
about 9 and 10 years apart.
Okay.
And so for me, it was kind of like, if I want them or the younger cousins or the younger generations, and without even knowing that you are a role model, to look up to somebody that believes in themselves enough to try something new, that's maybe away from the norm, maybe that is more daring, more out there, or however you want to look at it, it might inspire them to do the same for themselves. And that ripple effect of fulfillment for yourself will be felt by those people that are around you. So that was enough for me to keep going. Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned
I
about
realize.
Okay. Now it's been a major journey for you, and you've gone through the hoops. You've gone through a massive journey. Being in the creative business, how do you constantly evolve and adapt in a changing market?
Well, I feel like, well, first of all, no matter what the outside noise is, you always have to be true to who you are, what your message is, what your underlying purpose and your value is. Everything external, so don't change yourself for the sake of others, or, it's that superficial stuff. That's like the first and foremost. There's always going to be noise around you. There's always going to be trends. There's always going to be things that might catch your eye, but I feel like keep your finger on the pulse in terms of know what's out there enough for you to understand it, and that's how you can take from that particular thing and then insert it for yourself, or maybe go, that's not going to be my way of doing things, because maybe it's not going to reach who I'm supposed to reach, because it's like, is my demographic going to be reached through TikTok, for example? It's how you look at whatever that medium could be. If it's a changing market, even a changing communication medium, it could be. You only know true to yourself if that will actually work, if it resonates, or if it's just a fad or trend that you need to jump on to try. I think you'll work it out. You have no choice but to work it out. And if you continue trying, at least you'll figure out that, maybe it's not right, and and you can be sure of it. So that'll also increase your confidence. But when you can stay curious and open-minded about what new ways you can spread your message and give value, then that's how you can evolve in a changing market as well. It's not going to be all the platforms, as I mentioned, and especially if you're maybe an entrepreneur in your, I don't want to generalize too hard here, but like 30s and up, for example, where there's just so much stuff that the kids have that's trending, it can get overwhelming. It can get to try and do all these things. It really can get so overwhelming. I'm like, I'm too old for TikTok or this, whatever, right? But you have to change your outlook from I'm too old or I can't do this to being okay with having a beginner's mindset over and over and over again. And that's how you can stay evolving. And that's adapting, just sort of staying curious. And, there'll always be things or that you can take away from any situation, and that will continue. Because that's learning at the end of the day, and that'll keep you evolving. Because then you may change your thing or your approach or whatever it might be, to be able to like move forward and continue to try to reach your goals or make new goals, or that's...
Yeah. And what was pivotal for you then? What was pivotal for you and your defining moment to say, you know what? I've gone through this. It's been a while now. I think I need to change. What was pivotal for you?
Okay. So when I sort of
Shifted.
went from like corporate life to entertainment life.
Yeah, and then you evolved from entertainment.
Right. So 2013-ish. I think up until that point I was almost burning out from the corporate life, burning out in work that I wasn't enjoying. That's the worst part.
True.
You know what I mean? And up until that point, I was just like, I think I also have this feeling and thought of my brown skin meant that I needed to be the hardest worker in the room to be able to prove myself, to be accepted. Right? That's a trauma that we take with us, especially if we are coming from a culture or people of color or a minority group, whatever it might be. And so you burn yourself out to the ground because you're constantly trying to prove yourself, not so much to others, but to yourself, that you're worthy of being there. And I was kind of getting sick of that in a place where I wasn't even enjoying really the work. And up until that point, like 2013, I hadn't really taken a holiday. I thought it was irrelevant for me to take breaks. I was like, let's go, let's freaking go. Like, I had a crazy mindset back then. It was just like you had to really push your boundaries to understand where your boundaries are. And so I was like, my best friend was like, you need to go on a holiday with me. We need to go away. Like, and so 4 of us, we went away for like 2 months or 8 weeks, 7 weeks, or whatever it was. And getting space away. Actually, I was still doing work on the plane, on the plane over. Like, I was doing some like marketing budget or something stupid. Anyway, it was just, and she's like, can you put that down? Like, can you just relax now? Like, you're not in work mode. I'm like, I have to get this done. And, you know, I was so consumed by all those things, the things where, you know, work is always going to be there at the end of the day. So don't let that own you, basically. And I was letting it own me up until that point. I was young, impressionable, in my younger 20s. So it was just like, go, go, go. And that time away, being on a holiday for the first time in so long, made me rethink where I sit in the world and what I'm underusing within myself. Like, because there was this whisper, there was these passions, and there was these dreams, and there was this, oh, what if this happened? Or what if I could do this? And like, I was able to even realize some dreams. I remember just seeing, for example, I was a big fan of the YouTube artists from 2008, 7, all that kind of era, right?
Yeah.
So it was like your Gabe Bondocs and Jeremy Passions and all those sort of things,
yep.
right? You know the
Yeah, I know
drill.
them.
You know the Filipino starter pack.
Yeah.
Right, so
I love you said that.
it's the starter pack. It's like, no, there isn't a Filipino on this earth that doesn't know lemonade. Like, it's just, it's kind of that thing, right? And I remember back then I was like at uni and kind of just like a bedroom player of music, and watching them on YouTube gave me a hope that there was people out there that looked exactly like myself, had the same sort of background, that was creating success on this level or on this platform and could be a voice for others. And so back then I was like, oh, it would be such a dream to be able to work with them. And I have worked with them, which is crazy to me, because I'm just like, how did this even happen? It was just like that attraction. But, you know, 2013, it was really coming to my wit's end of like, I have to make a change or I'm going to be more and more unhappy. And then I see other people, older people, that was like a glimpse into my future if I had stayed. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to, it's not be that. I don't want to have that attitude in life. So I cut it off and turned left where you're supposed to turn right.
Yeah. So you mentioned about getting unstuck, you know, and you've experienced that a lot of times.
Yes.
But if someone who's actually experienced that now, who are actually currently stuck in life, or whether they're in the crossroads, you know, what would be your key steps in actually getting unstuck in life?
Right. So it can happen. First of all, being unstuck, it's frustrating. And it's this place of being where you can see what you want, where you want to be, or what your hopes or your dreams are, or the industry that you want to be in, whatever that looks like for you. And then you see where you are. And just taking one step towards it is daunting, and it leaves you stuck where you are. Nothing changes. So the first thing you'd have to do really is get silent, sit with yourself, ask yourself the important questions that will give you clarity. What do I really want? Why am I not progressing? What am I actually scared of? Most of the time it is fear, and you talk about this a lot, and it's so true. What's the pain that I'm avoiding? What's the worst thing that could happen if I did go for it? or if I just took a single step and just kept going and relied on that momentum. And you know, what I keep doing that keeps landing me back in that state of frustration. What is that thing that keeps me landing back in frustration? You know, you have an idea. It's all romanticized at the start, right? So you have an idea and then you make a plan for it and you take an action, and then there's some momentum. But then there's a roadblock. You don't know how to navigate through the roadblock. You get a setback, then you backtrack, and you end up giving up somehow along the way. You give up, but that give up moment is because you've concocted an excuse or a scapegoat of some sort in your mind, and not really faced moving forward or seen a way out that is moving forward. Moving forward could even be moving sideways, but you haven't figured that out yet. You think moving forward is like a one set thing, but it could just be moving away from instead of moving forward. You know?
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Sidestep. It's a sidestep because it's like playing a game. If you're playing like basketball or rugby or whatever it might be, and you're going from one place to the other and you've got an A to a B, but sometimes to go through, you have to go laterally to just create some sort of diversion, or maybe it just needs time, or it needs space or healing, and that maybe is just going sideways for a bit before you can go forward. You don't know, but you have to trust yourself enough to know that there is an option and a way out and a way forward, sometimes just by being still.
You know what? Because a lot of people tend to think that it's a straight line, and they get frustrated, they get overwhelmed, and they kind of like throw in the towel because they see, okay, I'm going on a straight. However, they need to experience it. You know what? They need to sidestep because it's not a straight line, right? You're going to have problems. You're going to have issues, right? But that should not run your life. You just got to accept it, and that's okay. Just move on.
Sure.
By sidestepping, maneuver, but don't lose sight.
Just reshuffle.
Exactly.
Yeah, find your footing again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So
100%.
It's just come to my mind now, actually, because like back in high school, I actually played a lot of touch football.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it, but I did. And I was never like the fastest, the strongest, the biggest, the whatever. However, I was the strategic one. I was the captain. I was the one that was making those plays and doing the thing. But my thing was, and sidestepping was one of my like moves, I guess you could say. Definitely. It's because like I wasn't the fastest, so I needed a way to kind of create a trick or a diversion or a way that there could be a little bit of a pause so that I could make a getaway.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to do that for yourself. I like to speak in metaphors, man. I love it. It just helps me.
No, that's amazing. Because you talk about getting unstuck, but people have certain behaviors and certain habits, you know, that kind of get them cycled back to where they are. How do you create that disruption to get that wake-up call to say, you know what, I need to change. I just got to do it, but they kind of, you know what I mean? How do you identify that?
You recognize the patterns. Once you start to understand where that frustration is coming from, you recognize the patterns and behaviors within yourself. I feel like you have to find compassion towards yourself. Only from there, you can start to understand and learn how you operate and accept it. Not be so hard on yourself and on your progress, because you're measuring yourself up to the person that's next door, rather than focusing on yourself, focusing on your moves, and your timeline, because your timeline is not somebody else's. And usually sometimes the frustration will come from that point of comparison.
That's powerful. Because,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And a lot of people are... You said about compassion, and that's a really powerful word, because not many people allow themselves to feel compassionate. They don't have that self-love and self-acceptance to say, you know what? And there's a lot of comparison out there, and they kind of like, you know, they want to pursue a lot of things in their lives, but then they have comparison, and there's no compassion with themselves. And it may be hard for them. How do you, you know, what would be your insights for them to allow themselves to be compassionate for themselves, to actually say, you know what? Because sometimes you put pressure on yourself, and it's like, and you've gone through that route as well when you've gone in the music industry. You know, there's so much pressure, but you're able to still withstand the storms.
Yes.
You know, how do you do that?
With compassion, I feel like the only way is to accept yourself completely and fully and wholeheartedly, flaws and all. Not avoid the flaws, accept and know that they're there. Know where your shortfalls are, know where your lack thereofs are, your weaknesses, I guess you could say, and acknowledge it. Instead of fueling all of those things with negative self-talk and ridicule, change the approach to get a better outcome, because it starts with yourself. And that's how you can start to heal. Like from that base of healing, then can come in the compassion, the awareness, the love, all the things that you need to build from. But you have to have that understanding of who you are and where you are. Even, however painful it is where you are at this moment, if you have that vision in your mind of where you could be or what it is that you want, ideally you already have it. It already exists in some universe. It already exists there. It's just the path for you to take the steps to make that happen, however long that takes. When people say, they've even said to me a couple of times, like in my process, it's like, oh, how are you just blowing up with all this stuff? I see what you're doing and da-da-da. I'm like, this shit doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. Like, it took a lot of soul searching and believing in yourself to even to get to that point. And even now, as like a coach, I've had to endure that again, because that sense of imposter syndrome comes in. And I'm like, oh, but am I enough? I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to swear. It's like, oh, damn, I'm doing it again. What the heck? I thought we were done with this. But no, it's a new level. It's a new devil. And you kind of have to just keep navigating yourself through it. But the thing is, it's like, you also have to understand that your work is not your worth. And I've said this to a couple of people before. And we often align ourselves with that. So we'll put ourselves worthy when our work is good, so everything else is good, but know how to separate yourself from it, because you are not your work. It's a part of you. It shouldn't define you per se, because there's going to be good days and bad days. Because does that mean that when you have the bad days, you're going to define yourself based on that bad day? Because you're not that. So once you start to get that recognition and journal more, reflect more, because that's what happens. That's what helps me to understand, and I guess read more and watch more, consume the content or the self-help books or all the things that might give you just a little bit of perspective that you can take away for yourself. I think that's how you can start to understand more about yourself in that sense, because the perception that you have of that piece of content will be based on your own experiences, your life experiences, your disappointments, your traumas, all of that. So just take it in, and only you know how it's gonna help you. Know what I'm saying?
Mic drop. This is amazing. I love it. Oh man, you're on fire, Blessie. This is amazing. So, I always ask this question on every guest that's on the show. What is your meaning of motivation without the hype? And how do you use motivation for your personal success?
Okay, motivation without hype. Okay, I think motivation without inspiration and perspiration is just like an empty promise to yourself, because motivation, it can be just such an external thing. You watch, for example, maybe it's a motivational video or a motivational piece of content, but that will expire in terms of its effect on you to be able to take the action to continue on or keep going. That will expire because something else will distract you in your world. So what needs to be paired up with motivation is the inspiration and the perspiration. The inspiration, meaning that's going to come from within. That is an inside, internal core thing where you always will need to start from. That's why we say that you do need to start from a place of compassion and healing of yourself and acceptance and love of yourself, because that will be your starting block before you can even accept motivation. Because otherwise, if you just see another motivational thing and you're not in that space to accept it internally, you're just gonna scroll past it. You're not gonna use it to your advantage for what you want it to be. And the perspiration is the work. It's the continuous work that you have to keep going with. So with my own, for example, with my clients, it's a I guess a process of discovery or self-discovery, and then the development process, which is, you know, creating the path, creating your way forward, and then the diligence, which is, again, like much like perspiration, it's the work. So you know, you kind of need to do all those things all together and mix them up within you. And that's motivation without the hype. You know, it's not being gassed up by like false, momentary, surface level content pieces that they'll work as boosters for you. But those, like, you know, like in Fast and the Furious, where you hit the NOS button and you get a boost. That's what motivation is. You get a boost only for so long until you're on cruise control again. You know, so that's without the hype. So but like, you know, so for real motivation without the hype is more the reason, the why, the purpose behind the behavior or the goal or the aspiration that you have. That's how I see it. Boom. That's how I see what you do.
Yeah, no, I love it because, you know, there's motivation and then there's like, I love the perspiration part because, you know, you got to take action and sometimes it's going to be a big challenge, but it's worth it at the end. And you're driven by that internal factor, right? It's that why. And, you know, as cliche as it sounds, you know, like, yeah, you got to be driven by your why, but what's going to wake you up the next day? And I love it. I love it. So, you know, thank you so much for adding so much insights, Blessie. It's been amazing in this short time that we have together. And I know there's going to be more of this, by the way.
I'm sure.
So, guys, for more information, how you want to get in touch with Blessie, and if it has resonated with you, I highly recommend that and I suggest to really follow with her and just connect with her as well. We got all the provided links on the show notes, so please do get in touch with her. She's amazing. So guys, if this episode has been helpful and uplifting, we'd love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to provide high-value content in each and every episode. If you don't mind sharing this podcast show on social media by inviting others, it would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspiration episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we'll see you on the next episode.